What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. We hope all is well wherever you are. We hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and we hope that you are safe and warm. I live in very South Texas, deep South Texas, the Rio Grande Valley. It's gotten pretty chilly here, but I know a lot of our viewers and listeners live in the DFW area. Our thoughts and prayers are with you. Stay warm, stay bundled up. We are thinking of you. It has been a while since you and I sat around the proverbial campfire and talked about our favorite thing in the whole world, the Dallas Cowboys. We've all been busy. The offseason is here. Hopefully, you're getting a chance to get some non-football things done, maybe some projects around the house. From an entertainment standpoint, maybe you're getting through some shows. I know I'm working through that. Got through the morning show on Apple TV. Wasn't that great. Started Yellowstone. Super awesome. Very excited to see where it goes. Been reading a lot of books lately. Yeah, I'm really pumped. The offseason is here. I, of course, wish that we were celebrating a Dallas Cowboys Super Bowl, but that is, of course, not the case. Maybe it will be a year from now. Now, something that has happened in the young offseason that we are in has been that, many have forecasted that this is going to be perhaps the most spectacular offseason that we have seen in some time. Obviously, the financial side of the NFL is going to be very different than a lot of people originally thought with regards to 2021. This is, of course, in relation to the pandemic that we have all been living in for almost a year now. The salary cap had traditionally gone up and gone up and gone up, but no, that's not going to be the case this year. It's going to go down. We've talked before how we think that maybe there's going to be a larger amount of one-year deals from players and things like that, and guys kind of wanting to stick with what they know because obviously last season was kind of sprung on people in terms of everything happening week to week and not really knowing what they were getting themselves into. That's why so many players opted out, et cetera, et cetera. So I do think that will be the case. We also are all believing that there's going to be a lot of quarterback movement. In fact, Adam Schefter a few weeks ago now listed kind of himself, I guess, the over-under at this is a particular distinction here. The starting quarterbacks for week one of the 2020 season, the changes of those particular 32 starting quarterbacks, Adam Schefter listed at 18, and he took the over. So that means that in the eyes of Adam Schefter, over half of the NFL will have a different starter come week one of 2021 than they did in 2020. Now, some of those are really easy. You look at Dwayne Haskins was the week one starter for Washington last year. Obviously, that's not going to be the case. Drew Brees in New Orleans, many believe that he's going to retire, obviously, this offseason. Now we know that Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford, who have already been traded for one another, along with some other things, are going to be part of that list. Carson Wentz is widely expected to be the next quarterback traded, although a new name to add to this list, Seattle Seahawks quarterback Russell Wilson. That is why we are here today to talk about Russ, the one that Seattle wanted to let cook, rather that Seahawks fans wanted to let cook, but Seattle themselves didn't necessarily feel the same way. How did this start? Because it's likely that you have seen some sort of rumor about this. I know that I wrote about this myself at bloggingtheboys.com. Make sure you are checking us out. BTB, your home for the best Dallas Cowboys content on the web. Where did it all come from? Because Russell Wilson has been Mr. Go Hawks since 2012. How on earth could things have gotten to this place where he would be a candidate to potentially be traded? Well, Russell Wilson was on the Dan Patrick Show last week and had some comments that were rather interesting.
How much input should the quarterback have in organizational moves? Veteran quarterback.
Yeah, I think it depends on who it is. I think.
Well, how about you? How much do you have any say in what Seattle does offensively with free agents or draft picks?
I think that it's I think that ultimately, for me personally, I think that I want to be able to be involved because at the end of the day, it's your legacy, it's your team's legacy, it's the guys you get to go into the huddle with, and at the end of the day, those guys you got to trust. When you think about, one of the reasons why Tom went to Tampa was because he felt like he could trust those guys, and Bruce was going to give him an opportunity. I think for every situation, you have to be able to go into a situation. You think about guys like LeBron. He was able to be around great players that he can trust. I think for me, anytime you bring free agents in, other players, you want the best players, guys who love the game, guys who want to be a part of that. And as a player, you kind of know that. You get to be around Pro Bowls, you get to kind of see these guys, you get to be in the huddle with the linemen or receivers, or get to be around defensive guys. And so you kind of build that over time and get to see who can really play. As a player, you really know. So I think that relationship's really key, and that dialogue between, especially being a veteran player, that dialogue is really important.
Yeah, but that's a long-winded way of not answering my question. Are you involved in personnel decisions? Have you been involved in personnel decisions?
Not as much. I don't, I think that, for
Do you
me,
want to be involved, Russ?
yeah, I think it helps. I think it helps to be involved more. But I think that dialogue should happen more often.
Kudos to Russell Wilson for having an awesome bookshelf behind him. I wonder how mmany of those he has read this offseason. Like I said, it's a goal of mine to get through a lot of the books you see behind me. One I'm currently on, that's right, The Big Cat, El Tigre. Yeah, it's a fantastic read. Working my way through a lot of books. Knowledge. It's a good thing. But anyway, Russell, it happened to be on the desk. It's the only reason I grabbed it. Thought it would be cool. Maybe it wasn't cool. If you didn't appreciate it, hey, my bad. I do want to know what books you're reading. Actually, what books should I read? Because I feel like I want to get into some non-sports books this offseason. Thought about the Chronicles of Narnia. Never got into it as a kid, so we'll see. But either way, let's get back on track here. So Russell wants some say in personnel. Russell Wilson wants to be protected. He wants to feel loved. He wants to feel cared about. He wants an offensive line. Now, let's be very clear here. The Dallas Cowboys offensive line is not what the proverbial water cooler would have you believe it is. I think if you struck up a conversation about the Dallas Cowboys with your friends, the ones that have not had the privilege of having Blogging the Boys, kind of show them the way when it comes to all things Dallas Cowboys. Tell them to subscribe to the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel so they can have all of the right content come their way. But anyway, I think these people, they think that the Dallas Cowboys have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL because we all kind of fall back on these stereotypes, right? Like we learn this, like, oh yeah, Pittsburgh Steelers got a lot of great linebackers. And I'm not saying that's not the case, but you get the point. Like a lot of people, they fall into those tropes, those stereotypes, and we just kind of start to believe them, even though they're not necessarily the case. The Dallas Cowboys offensive line isn't a shell of what it used to be. Obviously, Travis Frederick retired a year ago. Tyron Smith and Lyle Collins both had, basically the entire season lost. By the way, last week there was a rumor. Lyle Collins' agent came out and said that he saw a rumor that Lyle was going to be retiring this offseason. That kind of took all of us at BTB by surprise. We did write about that, but his agent denied that Lyle Collins will be retiring this offseason. But anyway, the point is, to that note, kind of, although that was a rumor, that this offensive line is just kind of normal good, right? It's no longer elite. However, I do think that the representation of the idea that the Dallas Cowboys have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL could go a long way in potentially landing Russell Wilson. Now, how could the Cowboys land Russell Wilson? They got to pay Dak. I'm with you. Pay Dak, please. We've been telling you forever how the Cowboys need to pay Dak Prescott. But if the Cowboys want to move on, if we want to talk about ideas and representations and stereotypes and whatever, there's a lot of worse ways to move on from Dak Prescott than Russell Wilson, believe me. And I do think that, we have a great show that we do at SB Nation, the SB Nation NFL show. And if you subscribe, it's available on all major podcast platforms. I'm going to play a clip from it here in a second. A great point was made by Rob Statsguerrero. I co-host a show with him on Thursdays called The Look Ahead. And Rob was talking about on Tuesday's episode on our feed, it's called The Oddcast with Brandon Lee Gowton, about how Jerry Jones could seemingly be in a position where he wants to win. And I think that this is an interesting point because the Cowboys are now in this spot with Dak Prescott where it does feel like the national narrative has changed. It feels like a lot more people believe kind of what we said, right? You got to pay Dak. Whereas, a year ago, I think there was a little bit more discussion. I think that there was a little bit more debate. And so I think the fact that so many people have kind of become team pay Dak, that might, in a weird way, work against the idea of paying Dak Prescott because the Cowboys might feel what's the only way that we could, win here. The only way that we could come out as if we're the true architects, we're the true grandmasters, we're the ones who are really going to pull this epic thing off, it would be to trade for somebody who's better than Dak Prescott, Russell Wilson. And believe me, I love Dak Prescott. I think he's a top, 5, 6, 7 quarterback, whatever kind of, length you want to go to. He's in that mix. I think that there are only a small handful of quarterbacks who are undeniably, undisputed better than him. I would put Russell Wilson in that category. I would obviously put Patrick Mahomes in that category. I would put Aaron Rodgers in that category. After that, I think it's a little bit up for debate. You could talk me into putting Josh Allen in that category. I know some people would put Deshaun Watson. Tom Brady won the Super Bowl. I know Tom Brady won the Super Bowl. However, who they are as athletes in today's exact moment, I would take Dak Prescott over Tom Brady. Obviously, Tom Brady is the GOAT. But this is an important topic, I think, here, because the Cowboys have to win, right? They want to win, because if the Cowboys ultimately pay Dak, like we've been saying, it will look like they've bent the knee, right? It will look like, well, Dak won. He held out. He played on the tag. Even though he got hurt, he pulled this off. Dak did it. Dak paved the way. Think about the way that people talk about Kirk Cousins, right? Kirk Cousins set a precedent. Kirk Cousins set an example. And in case you forgot, Kirk Cousins got a fully guaranteed contract with the Minnesota Vikings now 3 years ago, and that was really unprecedented before. And Kirk Cousins did kind of make himself an example and did pave a way for a lot of quarterbacks to follow, kind of like Dak Prescott is doing now. And so basically, maybe pride is a factor here, is an element here. I don't know to what degree, but I do think that it is a relevant one. And so the Cowboys could view this, again, there's only one way to kind of Indiana Jones swap out Dak Prescott for Russell Wilson, where everybody is kind of the mindset that the Cowboys improved. Because if the Cowboys walked away from Dak Prescott and stuck with Andy Dalton, or, went to Ben DiNucci or something like that, obviously, everybody would chalk that up as a huge L for them. But again, to replace him with Russell Wilson would be a huge, huge, huge win. But what does the financial side of that look like? Well, let's take a look at Russell Wilson's contract. We looked at this graphic a few weeks ago and telling you that, yes, the Dallas Cowboys should pay Dak Prescott. These are figures for the 2020 season. And obviously, Dak Prescott was on that 1 year fully guaranteed franchise tag, the $31.4 million value. Now, Russell Wilson, interestingly enough, I happened to write something in 2019 when Dak Prescott was first eligible for his contract extension, along with the likes of Carson Wentz and then Los Angeles Rams quarterback Jared Goff. You do see Kirk Cousins there. You like that. Anyway, in 2019, we all talked about this, but I urged at Blogging the Boys, the Dallas Cowboys, to not only beat Jared Goff, but to beat Carson Wentz and Russell Wilson to the bag. Because, like we have said many different times, every quarterback that gets paid raises the overall market value of the position. You look at the total value of Russell Wilson's contract, cool, $140 million, that's a lot of cheddar. But look at the average per year. This was 2 years ago. This was in 2019 when all these people were saying, oh, Dak Prescott's not even going to get $28 million a year, whatever. You can't give him $35 million per year. Well, the Dallas Cowboys, they like to live in the past when it comes to the deals that they offer. They want to pay a quarterback as if the market is what it was 2 years ago. Well, they could literally do that with Russell Wilson when you look at it. Again, a lot of this money has already literally been paid by the Seattle Seahawks, but this is obviously a better contract in terms of market value, because Dak Prescott's going to get paid soon enough by somebody, whether it's the Dallas Cowboys or not. I mentioned Josh Allen. He is eligible for a contract extension. So is Lamar Jackson. So is Baker Mayfield. We'll see what quarterbacks who hit the open market ultimately get, guys that are ultimately free agents. Deshaun Watson's not going to get a new deal, but obviously going to command an enormous value if he's traded by the Houston Texans. But again, look at that, $35 million per year in just a grand general sense. That is more palatable to a lot of people than Dak Prescott, because Dak's going to get somewhere around $40 million per year. That's the reality of the situation. That's the cost, no pun intended, of waiting these 2 extra years that the Dallas Cowboys ultimately have. What's funny is that this Russell Wilson deal was originally a benchmark of sorts. Honestly, that's literally the exact term. Friend of the show, Charles Robinson, fantastic NFL reporter for Yahoo Sports. This is a tweet from August 13th, 2019. You can see he's quoting the tweet of a particularly handsome, debonair individual, RJ Ochoa. That's right. You can follow me on Twitter or Instagram at RJ Ochoa for that matter if you want to see a lot of photos of my dog. He is enjoying the cold because we've got him nestled up in a whole bunch of blankets. He did not like the sweater that we put on him. Not every dog likes the sweaters. TikTok will lie to you. But anyway, Charles Robinson, again, I want to say again, this was August 13th, 2019. Charles said, yes, I've been told Seahawks quarterback Russell Wilson's deal, which was $35 million per year, is the Dak target, and that will rise next offseason if he shows out in 2019. Also, Slater NFL Network, Shane Slater, also friend of the show, isn't alone in hearing that $40 million APY negotiation number. That figure has gotten around to other franchises. Now, I want to look at something here in a grand sense. Stick with me here. Let me hold your hand. Vamonos, let's go. So I'm going to keep this up here because it's important. This was 2 years ago, all right? And 2 years ago, Jane Slater was the first to report, and it was just a report, that Dak Prescott was asking for $40 million per year, blah, blah, blah. Everybody freaked out, and there's no way he's not going to get $40 million per year, blah, blah, blah. I tell you what, do you know the tag value for this year? If the Dallas Cowboys are unable to come to a long-term agreement with Dak Prescott and they choose to franchise tag him, which would mean that they would rather have him than not have him, that tag value is about $38 million to be, let's round up. Let's be smooth. Let's be nice and simple. That is almost $40 million per year. The reason that this value was what it was 2 years ago was because franchise tag values are known way ahead of time. If you are franchise tagged like Dak Prescott was in 2020, the moment that tag hits, the moment you know the tags for 2021 and 2022. So Dak Prescott may or may not have legitimately asked for $40 million per year in 2019, but this shows you the cost and the inability of the Dallas Cowboys organization to look forward, to look ahead, because again, $35 million per year was the target, according to this report from Charles Robinson. 35 is less than 38. Again, if the Cowboys had found a way to come to terms, again, this was literally the goal. This was literally the target for Dak Prescott. If they had just done this, they would already have their quarterback to a much friendlier deal than if they had waited and dug in and dragged their feet and gotten to this point. And so now, who knows what's going to happen with Dak Prescott? But that's why I stress to you, we know for a fact, a stone cold fact, now that the Dallas Cowboys are comfortable with that $35 million per year average. And so they are obviously, besides the fact that Russell Wilson is a great player, comfortable with the financial value associated with Russell Wilson. Now, Russell is somebody who, again, is dissatisfied with his current team in the Seattle Seahawks. Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk wrote about this last week. Going to read it for you in my beautiful baritone voice. Keep an eye on the Cowboys. That's a team that has been on the radar screen as a potential Wilson destination for a while. And it actually makes plenty of sense for 2020. Tell me, Taylor Swift, you're feeling too. If the Cowboys can't reach a long-term deal with Dak Prescott, given that the Cowboys would have to offer a 44% raise over Prescott's $37 million franchise tender, I rounded up, like I said, in 2021 to tag him a third time. This is assuming the Cowboys do tag Dak Prescott this offseason and would have to do it again next season. That franchise tag value, if the Cowboys were to tag Dak Prescott in 2022, is an average per year of $54 million. There's no way they can afford that. They would have to let him walk like Washington did with Kirk Cousins. Anyways, moving on. That could be the moment in which the Cowboys make a play for someone like Wilson, but that could be too late. Wilson has launched a multi-pronged media assault, and he's winning. No one is mad at Wilson for saying what he said on Tuesday last week on the Dan Patrick Show, and fans and media seem to agree with his concern that the Seahawks haven't put enough talent around him over the past several years. I do think that this is fair logic because it does make sense. If you're talking about, you ever, you ever have food that's going to expire, right? And you're like, man, we got to cook this steak, right? Like the meat's going to go bad. We got to cook it today. It's a delicious piece of meat. We can't let it go. I know we feel like ordering a pizza, whatever, but we'll just cook the steak tonight. We'll eat it tonight. We'll order the pizza tomorrow. That's kind of the boat the Cowboys are in because it does make financial sense in one way to tag Dak Prescott and have him play on the tag this year, again, at a value that Florio has rounded here to $37 million, $38 million, whatever the case may be. 1 year's worth of services. However, if that were to be the case, because the Dallas Cowboys paid Dak Prescott $31.4 million for last year, they would have effectively given Dak Prescott a 2-year, $69 million deal that was fully guaranteed. 2 years, $69 million. That is almost $35 million a year, which is why it is so stupid that they were unwilling to do it 2 years ago. But getting back to the present tense here, I know we're jumping around a lot of places. We're moving, we're grooving, we're feeling good. If the Cowboys chose to tag Dak Prescott, that would make some fiscal sense for this year, especially in a year where the salary cap is going to diminish because of the pandemic, as we discussed earlier. The Cowboys could then, after this season, say, you know what, Dak Prescott, we're not going to give you $54 million per year because that's your franchise tag value here in 2022. Good luck. Go on with yourself. Get paid, do whatever you want to do. That would suck a lot, and maybe that is the point in time that the Cowboys and the Seahawks are finally able to consummate a trade, even though they have been trying since Earl Thomas stormed in the Dallas Cowboys locker room on December 24th, 2017. Now, how could it be too late? Because Mike Florio points out it could be too late. Well, because other teams could say, you know what, we don't want to wait till 2022. We want to act now. We want to move now. We want to make this happen now. Russell Wilson is somebody who has been connected to the New York Giants before. We don't know what that's going to be. Obviously, they have Daniel Jones and whatnot. But as we said at the very beginning of this episode, there is expected to be an unprecedented level of quarterback movement across the NFL this offseason. That could very well, and honestly should very well, include Russell Wilson if you consider that the Seahawks Seahawks have a lot of other decisions to make around their team. Now, we're just talking about bold predictions here, all right? This is specifically, I want to say it again. I'm going to say it 2 more times. This is a bold prediction. This is a bold prediction. I mentioned the SB Nation NFL show. You can hear me all the time over there. I do a daily update a couple of times a week. I'm on our Monday show, on our Thursday show, but our Tuesday show, the Oddcast with Brandon Lee Gouton and Rob Stats Guerrera, discussed bold predictions. There's your third extra time for me to say it. They discussed bold predictions once more on Tuesday, and the very first one here, I'm getting all, I'm hyped. I had an orange soda, so I feel really good. The very first bold prediction that the Oddcast put out on Tuesday was from Brandon Lee Gouton, who covers the Philadelphia Eagles for SB Nation, and BLG believes that Russell Wilson is in fact going to be traded to a team that we all know and love.
Number one, I'm starting it off. I know your co-host on The Look Ahead, who loves to reference this podcast, RJ Ochoa. I know he'll love this one, which means I hate it, and which means it's also bound to happen. The Cowboys trade for Russell Wilson. Stats.
Ooh, that is bold. Right out of the gate, you're coming in hot.
I am looking at this like Jerry Jones just saw what Tom Brady did, and I think he wants an instant winner because, he's getting up there in age. I also think he knows that Dak Prescott isn't going to fold in these negotiations. The Cowboys are in a spot here, Stats, where it's tough for them to tag Dak a second time in terms of hoping he's going to be around for the long term, because you can't really tag him a third time next offseason, because that would be 144% of his previous salary. And at that point, it's untenable. And I just don't see a long-term deal getting done here. If it was going to get done, it already would have happened by now. So I think the Cowboys know they're not going to be able to re-sign Dak long-term. I mean, you look at the last 2 quarterbacks to play on the tag, stats, excluding Dak last year. It was Drew Brees in 2005. It was Kirk Cousins in 2016 and 2017. And both of those quarterbacks left the team. So I don't think Dak is long for the Cowboys. I think this is their chance to get a quarterback, and they get Russell.
Oh, hey. What's that? Oh, hey. How you doing? Yeah. Like that? You like that? Not Kirk Cousins. Russell Wilson. And let me be clear about something. I love Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott is awesome. I believe that Dak Prescott is one of the best young quarterbacks in the NFL. If it isn't obvious, I also love me some Russell Wilson. That's right. I'm just one person. All right, my name's RJ Ochoa. I'm reading a book about Tiger Woods. I just started Yellowstone. I had an orange soda. You know me. How's it going? And speaking specifically for myself, Russell Wilson is awesome. Russell Wilson, and again, this is my personal opinion here, Russell Wilson is my favorite non-Cowboy in the NFL. Speaking for myself, because I do think I feel similarly to a lot of people, a lot of Dallas Cowboys fans, this is one of the only plans where Dak Prescott is not the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys that doesn't suck. And if this happened, I would be so mad at the Dallas Cowboys for butchering the Dak Prescott situation, because they have messed this up in a galactic way. However, if they could ultimately bring in Russell Wilson, obviously that would be really cool. Now, here's something about Russell Wilson that I think is important to note. Russell Wilson is a big fan of Russell Wilson, and that's okay. That's a good thing. We're Dallas Cowboys fans. We certainly know this drill by way of a particularly clear eye view. Now, Russell Wilson is very focused on his brand, very focused on his corporations, if you want to call it that, very focused on his public life. He has a podcast himself. Hey, Russ, come on, the Blog of the Boys podcast. We are available on all major podcast platforms. Subscribe. If you subscribe, leave a rating, write a review. Those things really help. We appreciate it. They warm our heart very much. And while you're subscribing to stuff, just subscribe right here to the Blog of the Boys YouTube channel. Anyway, back on track. Let's get here. Come on, focus. You and me, focus. Russell Wilson is very focused himself on his brand. He ends every interview with "Go Hawks." His wife is obviously one of the most famous people in the world. Russell Wilson himself is one of the most famous people in the world. There is a lot of brand symmetry here when it comes to Russell Wilson. So, man, what would be a great team for him to play for? The Dallas Cowboys, America's team, baby. Think about like t-shirts is such a low place to start. Think about the number of things that Russell Wilson could do as the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. And that, like, Dak Prescott is in every commercial. You can't watch an NFL game without seeing Dak Prescott's, is it Sleep Number commercials? Russell Wilson would be that to the nth degree. I certainly believe that if Russell Wilson has a say, has an opinion in this matter, which he seemingly would, he has started this whole conversation because of his opinions in general on the Dan Patrick Show. I have to imagine, I have to believe on some even small, minute level that Russell Wilson wants to play for the Dallas Cowboys, all right? I mentioned, this isn't me making it up. Google it. Russell Wilson has been connected to the New York Giants before. Why has that been the case? I don't know. It's probably because they are the New York Football Giants who play in the concrete jungle where dreams are made of, even though they don't technically play there, but they're still the New York Football Giants. And so, yeah, I mean, I totally believe that the Dallas Cowboys are a place that Russell Wilson wants to play for. The Dallas Cowboys are a place that a lot of people want to play for. Every year, every free agency cycle, we see every NFL draft cycle. Last year, Tua Tagovailoa sat down with NFL Network and said that he wanted to play for the Dallas Cowboys. Every dude wants to play for the Dallas Cowboys. Russell Wilson certainly is no different in that capacity. And so let's kind of run through the checklist here of things we need in order for Russell Wilson to the Cowboys to become a real, legitimate, true, actual possibility. We need the want to be there on Russell's end. Not only to be a Dallas Cowboy, but to lead the Seattle Seahawks. That seemingly exists. We also need the Dallas Cowboys to have a need at the quarterback position. That is kind of there. Again, the next 3 weeks or so are going to be very important in terms of determining that. We also need there to be a legitimate possibility for the Dallas Cowboys to be willing to commit themselves financially to Russell Wilson, which is why we talked about that at the beginning of this episode, because we know that the Dallas Cowboys are willing to commit that particular financial number, the number that the Seattle Seahawks got Russell Wilson to agree to 2 years ago when the Dallas Cowboys had the very first opportunity to, but anyway, don't want to waste time there. We know that the Dallas Cowboys are comfortable with that contract to their franchise quarterback, let alone Russell Wilson of all people. And so the only real thing that is difficult is actually trading for him, which is obviously not the most easiest. Most easiest is not grammatically correct, but you get the idea. It is not an easy proposition to trade for Russell Wilson. The Seattle Seahawks aren't going to let the most important, most visible, most notable, most successful player in the history of their franchise, which is much less renowned than the Dallas Cowboys. Obviously, no disrespect to the 12s, a fantastic NFL team, but they just don't have the legacy that the Dallas Cowboys do. They're not going to let Russell Wilson just walk for pennies on the dollar, which is why when you calm down, when you talk yourself, whatever, when you let go, and I don't mean that there should be some settlement sort of attitude when it comes to Dak Prescott. It would be awesome to keep Dak Prescott. I'd be pumped. We should all be pumped if that's the case. But it's fun to think about the idea of Russell Wilson in the Cowboys uniform. But if that does not happen, for whatever reason, Dak Prescott is a serviceable option, and that's being incredibly lied about. Dak Prescott is an MVP caliber option. But again, so if the options are simply pay Dak Prescott, who would at this point in time get more money than Russell Wilson, well, that's certainly one option. Or the option is pay Russell Wilson less than Dak Prescott. So okay, you're winning there technically, but also surrender an immense amount of draft capital. Maybe Michael Gallup is somebody that gets that deal done. Who knows? A lot of people believe Michael Gallup is, at least on paper, I don't want to put any rumor out there, but at least on paper, he's one of the more tradable assets for the Dallas Cowboys because they have depth at that position, because he's on the final year of his rookie contract. It just makes sense that if they were going to trade somebody, it would be somebody in that particular situation. I obviously would also love for the Dallas Cowboys to keep Michael Gallup. There's a lot of stuff kind of hovering and dwindling and chilling out in the air. But so, yeah, I mean, again, the options are pay Dak Prescott or acquire Russell Wilson, who is making less money than Dak Prescott. So again, that I want to say it again because that's an important thing. That would be regarded as a win, but also have to give up a lot of draft capital or whatever capital to acquire Russell Wilson. However, again, the last time I will say this, the Dallas Cowboys might view it themselves as a win. We started about how the narrative of all this is important. The Dallas Cowboys right now are not necessarily in a corner that they painted themselves into, but a lot of people believe, hey, pay Dak, pay Dak, pay Dak. And so the Dallas Cowboys might say, you know what? It's like that meme, right? Call the police, but not for me, right? The Dallas Cowboys want to be that, even if it costs them draft capital or whatever other type of capital, player capital, roster capital, whatever the case may be. I could certainly see them operating that way. It would also be fun. in one way to see all this happen, but it would suck because Dak Prescott is a really good quarterback. And a lot of people, this is the last thing I think we should address when it comes to this particular idea, because a lot of people say, well, send Russell to Dallas and send Dak to Seattle. Put Dak in this jersey. That's not happening, all right? And that is truly not going to happen because the Dallas Cowboys do not have contractual ownership of Dak Prescott at present time. The Dallas Cowboys' only way to do that if Dak Prescott does not agree with them or their terms on a long-term deal would be to place the franchise tag on him. So this is how that conversation would go, and I'm being completely serious here. Hey, Dak, we want to trade for Russell Wilson. So sign this one-year deal that's fully guaranteed. Just 1 year. You only get 1 year's worth of what you want to help us out. See you later. That would never happen. Dak Prescott would say, no, I'm not going to sign your franchise tag. If you're going to tag me, that's cool. I'll be on the roster too. You figure it out. And that would obviously not be an easy thing to do for the Dallas Cowboys. And I mean this completely seriously, the only way that this would work for the Dallas Cowboys, besides having to put together whatever it would take to trade for Russell Wilson, is they would simply have to let Dak Prescott walk. Kind of like we talked about when we read the quote from Mike Florio, how that plan would include letting Dak Prescott walk in 2022. You just hit accelerate on that whole process. You trade for Russell Wilson now, hypothetically, of course, and you let Dak Prescott walk. He goes and signs wherever. You get a 2022 compensatory pick. That's the end. It sucks that you wouldn't get really anything for a franchise quarterback, but you won, or whatever the case may be, in acquiring Russell Wilson, and that is that. So ultimately, is it possible for the Dallas Cowboys to acquire Russell Wilson? Sure, it's totally possible. Is it possible in the sense that anything's possible? Yeah, but I wouldn't say it's likely by any means, but there's legitimate, grounds for conversation, which is why you and I just sat here and talked about it. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope you have a great day. I hope you have a great week and a great month and a great year and a great life while we're at it. I hope you have a great meal, whatever meal you eat next. I hope your books are going well, your shows are going well, and really, I hope you had a good time. My name's RJ Ochoa. You can find me at blogoftheboys.com. You can follow me on Twitter or Instagram at RJ Ochoa, and you can do me a huge favor. Do me two huge favors. Subscribe right here to the Blog on the Boys YouTube channel. We really appreciate it. We have so much stuff we're working on when it comes to the offseason to talk about the thing that we are all obsessed with, the Dallas Cowboys. And the second thing you can do me in terms of favors, if you're in that kind of mood, you can have the best day ever. You know why? Because you deserve it. We will see you next time.